who will be Florida's next head coach? Jokes aside, 2024 is a must-have year for Billy Napier and the Florida Gators, especially if he wants to lower the temperature on his already hot seat. But it's shaping up to be one of, if not the most difficult campaign in college football. Napier is heading into his third season in Gainesville, and the pressure is mounting higher. After Dan Mullen was fired during the 2021 season, the fourth coaching search in 11 years was in order. Ever since Urban Meyer left, Florida has unsuccessfully been trying to recreate those glory days. Leaving the University of Louisiana after the most successful run in school history, resulting in the first double-digit win season and the first regular season game aired on ESPN, Billy Napier was headed to the big leagues of college football, the Southeastern Conference. Napier seemed to be a top-tier candidate for such a prestigious position, having assistant jobs with two national championship-winning coaches in Dabo Swinney and Nick Saban, as well as putting up an incredible 40-12 record with the Ragin' Cajuns, along with two Sun Belt Conference titles. Napier's predecessor, Dan Mullen, had shown signs of promise with a 10-11 win season with New Year's Six Bowl wins, but quickly spiraled in 2020 and 2021 with poor defenses and lackluster recruiting. The Gators needed someone to steady the ship and return the program where it ought to be, competing for championships. But it's been a rockier journey than most people would have thought. Many are even calling for Coach Napier to be fired and start a search anew. However, this would be costly. Not only would it be a very harsh first year for whoever takes the job, but Napier's buyout is sitting at a hefty $32 million. So what went so horribly wrong these first 2 years with the Gators? Napier came into Gainesville with the cupboards empty and dusty. Florida was very low on returning production going into 2022. Some interpret it as a year zero, meaning just a year of damage control and trying to sort out the mess Mullen had left him. The bright spot throughout Napier's first year was the run game, although inconsistent at times. Trevor Etienne and Montrell Johnson made an otherwise disappointing season a little more bearable. They did have a future first-round pick leading their offense in Anthony Richardson, but it seemed difficult to find consistency with their 58th ranked offensive unit. On defense, Florida lacked size, depth, and playmaking ability. It's a big reason why the Gators surrendered 30 or more points in 5 of 12 games and 40 or more points in losses to rivals Georgia, LSU, and Florida State. Going 6-6 wasn't all that bad, all the chaos considered. Heading into 2023, there were expectations of noticeable improvement. And it wasn't going so bad through 7 weeks. They were 5-2, heading back to the Swamp to host Georgia, with losses to Utah and Kentucky. They even had a dominant win over a Tennessee team that would finish in the top 20. There seemed to be hope of a solid season, and in the first quarter against the Bulldogs, it felt it could be more than that. Eugene Wilson caught a slant from Graham Mertz and ran past the Georgia defense for a 25-yard touchdown, although hope of taking down the two-time defending national champion quickly evaporated, resulting in a 43-20 loss, though hope for the rest of the season was still alive. After all, the loss to the Bulldogs was expected, but the preceding fall-off was not. Florida had a chance to rebound against a struggling 2-6 Arkansas team at home, but it quickly turned into a 4-quarter battle. Florida's special teams gaffes and bad tackling ultimately resulted in a 39-36 overtime loss, the first win Arkansas had ever had in the Swamp. What followed was the single worst defensive performance in school history against LSU. They basically produced more than half of Jaden Daniels' Heisman Trophy highlight reel in a 52-35 loss. Every game from then on seemed to be in the Gators' jaws of victory until it somehow wasn't. As the Florida Gators leave behind the disappointing 2023 season, the high university expectations are weighing heavily on the Florida coaching staff. With back-to-back losing seasons, the Gators find themselves at a critical juncture, seeking redemption and a return to prominence. But the 2024 season could not have been a worse time to need to win. The Gators' quest for redemption is ridiculous, even by SEC standards. From the season opener against Miami to clashes with juggernauts like Texas, Georgia, and LSU, and tough contenders in Tennessee, Kentucky, and the rising Ole Miss, even ending with Florida State. The path to resurgence is a gauntlet, week in and week out. This is the kind of schedule that an administration puts together just to fire their coach. The outcome of this upcoming season will undoubtedly shape the legacy of both Napier and the Gators for the foreseeable future. Florida would have to bless their lucky stars if they're bowl eligible, with this murderer's row headed their way. Amidst the broader narrative of rebuilding and coaching scrutiny, there is some hope at one position. Graham Mertz, the seasoned transfer from Wisconsin, and DJ Lagway, the promising freshman sensation, are leading the quarterback room. Mertz, with a breakout season tempered by a late injury, returns to mentor Lagway, the heralded recruit with a dazzling high school career. With a solid quarterback depth chart, Napier will finally have to revive his struggling offense in order to be relatively competitive to keep his job. Florida in 2023 was subpar against most defenses with a pulse. They just looked discombobulated. This was especially apparent on special teams, which was infamous throughout the season for having 10 men on the field, poor substitutions, and even sending on 2 players with the same number.
Hold into
equipment violation on the defense. There were 2 number 3s on the field for the Florida team.
Adding another layer to the Gators' challenges is an ongoing NCAA investigation. Scrutiny into the recruitment of Jaden Rashada injects an element of uncertainty, casting a shadow over the program. In the face of adversity, the Gators must navigate the investigation's aftermath while striving for on-field success. The question is whether the Florida Athletic Department has the patience to wait out success with Billy Napier past 2024. To look in Tallahassee and see how Coach Mike Norvell rocketed out of 2 straight losing seasons to 10-3. With the expansion of the playoff, Florida could just be the 3rd or 4th best team in the SEC and still get in. If Billy Napier can save face enough in 2024, and with the top 15 recruiting class the Gators brought in this year, they could really build some momentum heading into 2025. I'm sure everyone would love to see a home playoff game in the Swamp. However, this is all dependent on solid on-field performance this year. My prediction is that the next head coach of the Florida Gators will be Bill Belichick. We all know he's clamoring to get out of the cold up in Foxborough and head to the Swamp. Or maybe Urban Meyer will return out of retirement and lead Florida to a national championship with Tim Tebow as an offensive coordinator. Really, nobody likes to see people fail, especially when everything is stacked against them. If Billy can't keep most of these games close and maybe win one he isn't supposed to, he might be able to keep his job. That is just how insane this schedule is. Florida is a program that should compete for the SEC and playoff spots with the resources they have, as well as sitting in such fertile recruiting ground. Billy Napier has to really put on a show for the Florida faithful to hop back on his bandwagon. If you enjoyed this type of content, please consider subscribing, and comment if you think Billy Napier can save his job.